Subscribe before the truth disappears. The first voice is steady because it has to be. County 911, what's the location of your emergency? The second voice is 17 years old and shaking like metal in cold rain. I just killed my sister. A porch light blinks on. Somewhere inside the dark, a mother wakes to the sound of a son calling down a hallway that suddenly feels a mile long. Somewhere outside, tires hiss on wet asphalt as an ambulance swallows the distance in red and white. Detective Laura Keene hears the call en route, dashboard radio throttled low, windshield stuttering under the storm. By the time she steps into the two-story, the whole house has a pulse, compressions counted in a calm dispatcher's metronome. 1, 2, 3, 4. A paramedic slides into position and takes over, and the number of people in the room doubles, but the air doesn't. On the carpet, where a girl should have woken to her senior year, lies Maya Dunn, 17. Hair fanned, skin gray at the edges, a pillow streaked dark under her neck. "Where's the knife?" Keene asks. A uniform points to the evidence tech holding a clear bag, a fixed blade with a worn fuller and stacked leather grip. The tag reads, "Found on floor, east side of bed." In the foyer, another unit finishes cuffing the brother. Evan Dunn is barefoot in rain-damp t-shirt, wrists cinched in orange plastic. He looks like he's been poured out of his body and into the wrong one. "It was a dream," he says, not loud, not whispering. "It was just a dream, and then it wasn't." Keene steps outside to oxygen. The storm has scrubbed the neighborhood to metal and glass. She writes the first notes because ink pushes back against chaos. 0441, call. CPR in progress. Pillow saturated. No signs of forced entry. She writes more because writing keeps a mind from filling the room with ghosts. Parents home asleep. Twin siblings. Knife from father. Inside, in the kitchen with the light too bright, Michael and Dana Dunn fold and unfold their hands, forgetting where to put them when there's nothing left to hold. "He called out. I heard the words, but it didn't sound real," Dana says, voice gone hoarse on the word mother. "He said he thought it was a dream." Keene doesn't nod. She doesn't shake her head. Some sentences are shoreline. You don't step on them until you see where the rocks are. "Was Maya awake when you saw her?" Michael starts and stops. "Her eyes were, I don't know, she wasn't the blood. I called, 'Where's my son?' and the officers were already." Across the house, CSU works in quiet choreography. Wide photos, angled photos, the close-up of a latch with no scratch marks. They cut the pillowcase, peel it back, and give Keene a look that says, "Later." For now, the medic calls a time, and the room learns a new silence. By 9 a.m., Evan is in an interview room with Detective Frederick Munoz, a camera's red pinprick steady as a heartbeat. Keene watches from behind glass, pen in hand, old habit masquerading as comfort. "What happened, Evan?" Munoz asks easy, as if this were about a scraped fender. "You ever have a nightmare that feels real but also off?" Evan's fingers knead themselves into a knot. "I thought I was like in a dream. I felt the stab, then the light, and there was blood, and I grabbed the pillow and I called. I didn't want her to die." "How many times did you stab her?" "Once," he says, and winces as if the word itself cuts. "Where'd you get the knife?" "My dad gave it to me yesterday. It's an old survival knife. We go camping. I was excited about it." Munoz moves him gently through the night, thread by thread. Evan was up late, phone in hand, scrolling. He thinks he fell asleep around 2:30, maybe 3 o'clock. He remembers nothing until the feeling. He remembers turning on the light. He remembers the pillow. He remembers dialing 911. He does not remember a second stab. He does not remember a reason. When Munoz steps out, Keene keeps watching the boy through the glass as if he might change into someone else if she blinks. Her phone vibrates. Lieutenant Cruz. Parents lawyered. Media sniffing. Get me motive or get me daylight. She doesn't text back. Daylight doesn't cooperate. The Dunn's living room becomes a map. Keen walks it from front door to bedroom and back, feeling for friction. A scuff on paint where a shoulder might have slid. A rug's new misalignment near the bed. No forced entry on doors or windows. No defensive wounds on Evan's hands. A phone on the brother's desk with a lock screen stained by thumb oil and rain. A knife that looks like it's had more stories than this house. She sits with Maya's life as if it might introduce itself. Sketchbooks stacked with graphite ghosts, a list on the whiteboard, SAT Saturday, portfolio due when, email Mrs. Ruiz. A ring of friends on her phone that text in lowercase and emojis. An art channel with a few hundred subscribers and a patience you don't expect from teenagers. Layer, wait, soften, blend. Normal is not proof of anything, but it makes the edges cut deeper. The autopsy pulls a thread out of Evan's once. 2 wounds in the neck. The second deeper, a line that crosses arteries like a bridge cut. The medical examiner's report reads like a mechanic's grief. Angle, depth, damage. It also reads time the way police need time to be read. Minutes, not seconds. Which wound first? Keen asks. Hard to say with absolute certainty. And because absolute certainty is a fiction, the room rearranges itself around doubt. By the afternoon, the story forks. The defense reaches for science. They bring in a neurologist, Dr. Israel Jarrell, who has spent a career watching brains misfire in the dark. He talks in waves and acronyms. Non-REM parasomnia, violent behaviors during slow-wave sleep, obstructive breathing that jolts the body into movement while the mind stays under. He runs a study and notes what he needs, how quickly Evan drops into deep sleep, how his breathing stutters. He draws a narrow bridge between 4:17 a.m. when Evan's phone stopped pinging the world and 4:41 a.m. when the 911 clock began. The state is unimpressed. They hire their own expert, a psychologist named Pressler, who has measured too many lies to mistake one for jet lag. Sleepwalkers swing when you grab them. They don't unsheath knives in target arteries. They don't remember the feel of a blade entering flesh. He circles the pillow and refuses to label the circle mercy. He questions the whisper in the call, the way help was asked for softly in a house with 2 sleeping parents. He says the timeline isn't a bridge, it's a story. The case splits the county like a season. Evan becomes a mirror. What people see says as much about them as it does about him. There are those who were never children at night. They do not believe in the violence of sleep. There are those who have woken standing in rooms they did not walk into. They do not trust their own hands. In the middle are the rest of them, and Keen, who has stood in too many rooms where grief makes good people reach for impossible math. She works the pieces that aren't opinions. Phone records put Evan online until 4:17. At 4:41, the call starts. Compressors count. Between those marks is a silence. She sends a subpoena for the tower dump anyway, then toggles to the neighborhood cameras. A porch cam across the street records raccoons with better resolution than most robberies. She watches the whole night on 2x speed, the rain turning the world to static, then slows it down when the house across the street gets a shape at the edge of the frame. A lurch of gray that might be wind, might be nothing, might be everything if you need it to be.
At 8:12 p.m., Keen steps out for air she doesn't taste and runs into a reporter whose tie looks glued on. "Detective, off the record." "Everything's always off the record until it isn't," she says, moving past, and her phone rings again anyway. "It's CSU. We finished the pillow," Morales says. "The pattern's odd." "How odd?" "Less spatter than you'd expect from a second withdrawal. A lot of soak. And there's tar on the seam." "Tar?" "Roofing, sealants, something rubberized. You don't get it in a carpeted bedroom unless it came from somewhere else." Keen draws a slow breath. "Bag it. Double chain, I don't want this piece to go walking." In the interview room, Evan stares at his hands as if they'll write the Y in his palms if he waits them out. Keen steps in and sits. She doesn't touch the recorder. She doesn't touch anything. "Your phone. We'll be able to see when you fell asleep. That's not the point anymore." She slides a photo across. Not of Maya, not of the room. It's a macro shot of the pillow seam, black flecks caught in the weave. "Do you work with anything sticky? Sealant?" No. Did anyone bring anything into your room earlier in the day? A bag, a jacket? No. Evan, is there anyone who would want this to look like something it isn't? He looks at her like she's just asked him to translate a dream. I loved her, he says, as if that answers everything. And maybe it does, and maybe it doesn't. At 10:03 p.m., Keen is still at her desk when the tower dump analyst calls back, voice a little caffeinated, a little proud. Detective, there's a blip you should see. A call attempt from a cell registered to Maya Dunn. Keen sits up. Time? 04:19:08. 8 seconds, no connection, then nothing until you're 04:41. Outgoing or incoming? Outgoing, the analyst says. To 911. Keen stares at the wall until the paint swims. She says, Maya tried to call, but the room is empty, and the sentence hits the floor. She opens the call log on her screen. There was no record of it in dispatch, no ring to the center, just the tower's shrug. The phone reached for help and never touched a hand. She says, send me the sector map. And the signal strength. The analyst hesitates. There's one more thing. Ping from a second device at 0420 in the Dunn house. Not the brothers, not the victims. Unknown prepaid. It lit and died in under a minute. Keen's pen moves before her breath does. 0419, Maya call attempt. 0420, unknown device on. 0441, Evan call connected. In the quiet, the rain finally quits, like someone turning down a radio. She can feel the house again, the upstairs hall, the bedroom with the whiteboard, the pillow that's soaked instead of spraying, the tar in a seam that doesn't belong. She can see the window that was locked, and the door that was too. She can see suddenly a third thing she hadn't let herself imagine. A phone lighting up in a girl's hand, a thumb smearing the screen, a number failing to catch, a second device breathing to life somewhere in the house like a heartbeat you don't know is yours until it stops. Keen dials Munoz. Don't release him yet. On what? On the fact that the room has more than one story. She pulls up the sector map and watches the coverage wash over the block. She says, and we've only heard the one that talks. She looks again at the timestamp. 0419:08. 8 seconds that never made it to anyone's ear. When they finally pulled the tower logs and found the call that didn't connect, everything changed. By dawn, the storm had wrung itself dry, leaving the city rinsed and brittle. Detective Laura Keen drove to evidence control with coffee she didn't taste and a sentence she couldn't shake. 041908, Maya's call that never reached them. Morales met her at the counter with gloved hands and a furrow that hadn't unclenched all night. We re-examined the pillow, he said, leading her to the stainless table. You were right about the tar. It's not a random contaminant. It's a specific rubberized patch, polymer blend used in consumer roof repair kits and, to a lesser extent, waterproofing seams on camping gear. Camping? Keen said quietly, eyes on the frayed stitching. The Dunn garage had smelled like twine and old canvas. Here's the part you're not going to like. Morales slid her a fresh chain of custody. The seal on the outer bag is intact, but the inner pouch, the one around the pillowcase, was slit at the seam and heat-sealed again. We didn't do that. Camera? Keen asked. Down for maintenance. He winced. Scheduled. For that hour. Heat rose in Keen's chest, not from anger so much as from the physics of pressure. She said, lock the room. Audit the access logs. Anyone who swiped yesterday gets a visit. She stepped outside and called Munoz, the hiss of line noise like sand in her ear. We've been touched, she said. Whoever is pushing this case forward is also reaching backward. Defense will scream frame, prosecution will call it noise. Either way, we drown. Not if we find out who brought tar into that bedroom. Assistant District Attorney Claire Rudd had a reputation for talking jurors into liking their own doubt. In her glass-walled office, she watched Keen lay out the map. The pillowcase seam, the 0419 call that died in the tower, the unknown and prepaid phone that blinked awake inside the Dunn house for under a minute. "You're building a mystery around a knife in a kid's hand," Rudd said, voice the kind you could bounce nickels off of. "A jury will grab the thing they can hold. The rest is smoke." Smoke moves when there's wind. That minute-long device wasn't Evans or Maya's. It lit up inside their walls. Someone else was there. Or a neighbor's phone ghosted the network. It pinged the same sector as both of their phones, Claire. Rudd steepled her fingers. "Then bring me a face to attach to your tower." Across the river, a different story was gathering its own gravity. Evans' public defender, Tess Hart, called Dr. Isaac Jarrell in his conference room and wrote SWS on a legal pad as he talked. Slow-wave sleep, non-REM parasomnias, the way obstructed breathing can kick a body up into movement while the cortex, the part that knows better, stays under. He had wired Evan twice. He had watched the drop into deep sleep in 11 minutes flat, fast for a healthy teen. He had seen the stutter of breath. He told Hart about the slice of time between 4:17 and 4:41, the way it could fit a sleepwalking episode and a panic wake that would feel like surfacing too late. "Can I say it's what happened?" he asked. "You can say it fits," Hart answered. "The state will call their own and say it can't." They did. Dr. Preschler shoved his glasses up and told cameras the things cameras like. Sleepwalkers lash when grabbed, not in calculated arcs. They do not unsheath knives. They do not remember the part of the dream where the blade goes in. He circled the whisper in the 911 call as if volume had DNA. The comments filled and spilled, half of them science, half of them fire. In the middle of that noise, Maya became the part people forgot to speak out loud first. Keene shut off the TV and drove to the Dunn's house with a warrant for digital everything. Michael and Dana watched her and Muñoz move through their rooms with their hands wrapped around cups that had gone cold. In the garage, Keene found the camping crates, lanterns, stove, rolled pads. On the workbench was a half-used tube of seal-fast roof and seam patch next to a cheap heat gun. There was tar on the trigger. She took photos and bagged it all. On the pegboard hung a sheath, the kind meant for a survival knife with a stacked leather grip. The edges glistened like something had been re-glued. "Did you repair your shed?" Keene asked Michael. 2 weeks ago. Rain got under the shingles. I patched it. Why? "Because the tar on your bench lives on your daughter's pillowcase," she didn't say. Instead, because transfer doesn't care about grief. She crossed to the small office. The Dunns had installed a smart lock last spring after a rash of break-ins on the block. Keene sat at the family desktop, pulled the portal, and asked for the event log. Entries popped in rows: armed, disarmed, entry, master. At 3:57 the night of Maya's death, a new line blinked at her. Disarm, temp/guest, number 4. "Who uses guest number 4? She called. Dana closed her eyes, remembering. "We gave a temp code to the HVAC guy in June and the dog walker once. I thought I deleted them." Keene scrolled. "Guest number 4 created 22:14 the previous night. Creator, admin, Dana's iPhone." Dana's hand flew to her mouth. I didn't." Keene shook her head. "Phones don't need permission to be borrowed. Who had access?" Dana's eyes filled. "We had friends here after the vigil at school, neighbors, my sister, our pastor. It was a lot." "Anyone touched the phone?" "I don't know." Keene exported the log and pushed on. Maya's room had a smart lamp that recorded on motion by accident, a feature somebody never turned off after trying it once. Keene found the app on Maya's tablet, breathed once, and pulled the cloud. The timeline loaded in grayscale thumbnails. Keene scrubbed to 04:18. A smear of hallway, light from a phone across a chest like a badge, a shoulder. The frame stopped. She pushed forward 1 second at a time until motion became shape. Someone passing Maya's open door, tall enough to crop at the mouth, wearing a rain shell. The camera's cheap lens exaggerated angles, but the silhouette was wrong for Evan's flight frame and wrong for Michael's thicker one. "Pause," Munoz said behind her, voice gone tight. Keene zoomed the image until it broke apart. The hand at the phone was visible for 2 frames. On the ring finger, a band thicker than a wedding ring, squared at the top like a signet. "Do we know anyone with a ring like that?" Munoz said softly. Dana nodded once. "Our pastor, and the bondsman who posted Evan's bail, and—" her voice shook, "and the investigator Claire Rudd sent to help us understand court." "Names," Keene said, pen ready. She didn't like the way Munoz looked at the list. She liked even less what happened next. At 2:13 p.m., as Keene waited on the prepaid phone subpoena, Evidence Control pinged her with an automatic alert. Item 7C, pillowcase, accessed, user L. Keene, 1412. She was 3 miles away. "Lock it down," she said into the phone, already running. "I didn't pull that." When she arrived, the pillowcase was back in its bin like a body tucked into a bed. The log said your badge printed a release and the camera above the door caught no one. Morales' jaw worked. Either you just invented teleportation, or someone's writing your signature better than you do. Crew suspended her access on the spot to protect the chain. "I'll fix it," he told her under his breath, which in this building meant, "if I can." "Fixing it isn't the same as rewinding it," Keene said. The room smelt like warm plastic and guilt. She signed the temporary lockout and walked into air that felt colder than it should. Her phone vibrated, the carrier on the prepaid. Device purchased at 10:32 p.m. at Sunmart number 118. 2 minutes later, phone activated with a single call to a blocked number. At 4:20, it pinged inside the Dunn house for 57 seconds. No usage after. Sunmart 118 sat under buzzing tubes and an ammonia smell on the bad side of a strip. The clerk looked at the photo Keene slid across, rain shell, ring, foam glow, and shrugged. "I don't look at hands, I look at bills." The camera did look. The video showed a hooded figure buying 2 prepaid cards and a pack of Max brand rubber gloves. In the corner of the frame, a logo flashed as the customer turned, a small, stitched emblem on the chest, Capstone Investigations. Keene stared until the pixels steadied. She had seen that emblem on a windbreaker in the courthouse corridor 2 days earlier, attached to a man who smiled like he was privileged to help the state help the truth. She texted the plate of the sedan she'd clocked outside the Dunn house that morning of the storm. DMV returned a name, Tobias Klein, licensed private investigator, contracted to ADA Claire Rudd. Munoz swore softly through his teeth. He could say he was securing the scene for the family services liaison. He could, Keene said. He could also say he saw a kid-shaped monster in the dark and decided to help the story along. She felt the old heaviness, the one that came when power picked a lane and forced everyone else into it. Her phone vibrated again. Hart, the defender. "Jarrell needs Maya's 419 logs for his report," Hart said. "My expert says the tower failed her. The state's expert is going to say that proves nothing." "It proves she tried," Keene said quietly. "Then help me prove the rest," Hart said. And Keene could hear the plea under the lawyer's cadence. "Don't let them close this without testing the hinges." Keene hung up and drove back to the Dunns with a warrant for the nursery cam's full cloud. In the hallway, Dana had taped a sheet over the open doorway to Maya's room, a gesture of modesty for a room that no longer needed it. Michael stood outside with his hands in his pockets, staring at nothing. "Did the investigator from the DA come into your house the night after?" Keene asked. He offered to walk us through," Michael said. "He said he was there to help. He had a ring. He shook my hand hard." Keene let a beat pass. "We have him on video at a store buying a prepaid phone and gloves." Michael sagged against the wall. Why would... Because narratives don't write themselves, Keene said, harsher than she intended. She softened. I don't know yet, but someone made sure the pillow we see tells the ugliest version of your boy that's possible. Someone made Maya's 8 seconds vanish. Upstairs, Keene logged into the smart lamp with a court order. The app stuttered, greenhouse green icons jerkily breathing. She pulled the raw files instead of the thumbnails and scrubbed past 0418 again, frame by frame. The ring flashed, the hood rose, and then a glitch she hadn't seen. The figure turned its head against the hall light just enough to throw a reflection into a cheap glass picture frame on the dresser. Keene froze the frame and magnified the reflection until it broke into blocks. A jawline emerged anyway, a mouth, the ghost of a nose. Enough for a human to recognize a human if they already knew him. She printed it and drove to the courthouse without telling anyone. ADA Rudd was in the corridor outside arraignments, her suit the gray of storms that pretend they're clearing. Keene held the page out. Your contractor, in the Dunn house at 0418. She didn't reach for it. If he was there, it was to advise the family. And at 2232, he bought the phone that pinged in their walls at 0420. He borrowed Dana's phone to create a guest code, disarmed the system, and went in. That pillow wasn't just a pillow. It was a message. To the jury, to you, to everyone watching. Rudd's mouth tightened in that small professional way that says, this is not the kind of problem that goes away when you raise your voice. If you're accusing the state of evidence fabrication, you'd better have more than a reflection in a frame and a convenience store logo. I have a call that never connected and a girl who tried. And now I have a reason why the call died. The second device pulled signal from the same corner of the house at the same second. The network notes a spike. It's subtle, but it's there. And your point? Rudd asked. Somebody didn't just stage a narrative. Somebody stood in the doorway while Maya reached for help. They stared at each other until a bailiff cleared his throat hard enough to move the air. Keene turned. In the atrium's glass, she caught her own reflection, and beyond it, a man in a capstone windbreaker, square ring winking in a line of fluorescence. Tobias Klein watched her like he watched everyone from the wrong side of one-way glass. He lifted a hand, friendly as a neighbor. Keene walked toward him, and he vanished into the stairwell. Her phone buzzed before she hit the door. Unknown, stop digging. The second later, unknown, you're not the only one with cameras. She pushed into the stairwell and took the steps 2 at a time. On the landing between floors, a manila envelope lay on the concrete like it had been dropped by accident. Keene knelt, slid out a single glossy photo, and felt the world tilt. Maya Dunn, alive at 04-1907, eyes open, phone lid in her hand, the screen showing 911, the last one unpressed. Behind her, in the mirror, a tall shape at the door, a ring catching the light, and scrawled across the bottom in Sharpie, block letters steady as a beating heart, she saw me. The photo wouldn't leave her head. Maya in the mirror, the ring, the unfinished number on the glowing screen. Detective Laura Keene had spent her career chasing ghosts, missing witnesses, vanished files, broken chains of evidence. But this time the ghost wasn't hiding. It was leaving her messages. The elevator hummed as she leaned against the cold panel, the envelope still warm in her hand. Someone had been close enough to leave it and bold enough to taunt her with, "You're not the only one with cameras." Outside, the morning light had that metallic taste that comes after a long rain. She crossed the street toward her car, every window a possible lens. By the time she reached the precinct, Munoz was waiting. "You look like you've seen one," he said. "I think one saw me first," Keene replied, sliding the photo across the table. He stared at it for a long time. She was alive at 4:19, then dead by 4:41, which means whoever was standing behind her was there when she called for help, Keene finished. And it wasn't her brother. She opened her laptop and pulled up the security logs again. The disarm code, the phantom badge at evidence control, the prepaid phone, all trails that pointed to the same place. Capstone Investigations. The man in the courthouse hallway, Tobias Klein. 11:06 a.m., Capstone HQ. The office was glass and gray carpet, the kind of private security chic meant to look harmless. Klein sat behind a desk cluttered with case folders and a half-eaten breakfast taco. The signet ring on his hand caught the light like a small sun. "Detective Keene," he said, "you could have called." "I did. You didn't answer." He smiled. "You cops think you're the only ones who read call logs." She set the photo on his desk, face down. "You were in the Dunn house, you falsified access, you tampered with evidence." Klein leaned back. "Big accusations. They're backed by tower data and your credit card at Sunmart 118. He sighed as if she'd caught him skipping paperwork instead of obstruction. "You think I care enough to plant anything? I was hired to confirm the timeline for the DA. Rudd wanted to know if the kid could have made that call window. So yeah, I went in, after the scene was cleared." "The pillow was sealed again, Tobias, after you handled it." A flicker. There it was. Fear or memory? Hard to tell. He stood, slow. "You know what's funny, Detective? I didn't see any pillow when I got there. Just a stain on the floor and a family that couldn't breathe. You're chasing ghosts." She held his gaze. "Maybe, but ghosts don't sign access logs." 2:42 p.m., Harris County Forensics. Morales called her when she was halfway back. "I told you to rerun the pillow fibers. I did. You're gonna want to see this." In the lab, under ultraviolet, the fabric glowed in two distinct shades. One older, oxidized, soaked deep. The other recent, thin, brushed on. "What's that layer?" Keene asked. "Film from nitrile gloves. Industrial, not hospital grade. The kind PIs buy in bulk." Timeline. "Applied after drying, after it was bagged." Keene stared through the microscope. "They wanted the blood to look fresh." He nodded. "To make it seem like the brother staged a rescue, a nice cinematic smear for the camera." That night, the precinct lights burned low. Keene typed a report that read more like a confession. Evidence manipulation by external consultant, possible prosecutorial misconduct, murder investigation compromised. Before she hit save, her phone buzzed. Unknown number again. One message. "Check your rear view." She turned slowly toward the window. Across the lot, a dark sedan idled, headlights off. A silhouette sat inside, unmoving. Keene walked outside, badge in one hand, service weapon low at her thigh. The car rolled forward, tires whispering on wet asphalt. When she reached the spot where it had been, she saw what it left. Another manila envelope under the lamplight. Inside was a USB stick and a single typed note. "You were right, but you're late." 11:50 p.m., police forensics server room. Keene loaded the USB into an isolated drive. A single video file blinked open. Time-stamped 04/1845. The Dunn hallway again. This time in clean color, not the fuzzy grayscale of the lamp camera. The angle was different, slightly higher. Whoever filmed it was holding a phone. In the video, Maya appears at her doorway, startled by something off-screen. She raises her phone. Behind her, a man steps into the frame, cap pulled low, blue rain shell, signet ring visible as he reaches toward her. The motion freezes as the footage cuts. Then a second clip autoplays. Klein, hours later, standing in the hallway whispering into his phone. It's done. The footage is wiped. The DA gets her conviction. Keene stopped breathing. She pulled the audio log, stripped background noise, isolated the second voice on the line. A woman. Calm, controlled. Good. Make sure nothing leads back to me. She didn't need to enhance it. She knew the voice. ADA Claire Rudd. By dawn, the DA's building was crawling with internal affairs. Rudd's office sat hollowed and cold. A half-empty mug, an open calendar, the polite vacancy of someone who had run before the clock caught her. Munoz leaned against the doorframe. So, she bought herself a clean case? She bought herself a killer narrative, Keene said. Sleepwalking boy, dead sister, no motive needed. Where's Klein? Gone. His car's still in the lot, but the ring's gone from the desk. She handed Munoz the USB. This is our rope. Pull it before it disappears. 2 weeks later, the footage hit the press. Rudd was indicted for obstruction. Klein vanished. Evan Dunn's conviction was vacated. But the victory tasted wrong, like rainwater on rust. At the retrial, Evan sat small and pale. I remember waking up, he said on the stand. I remember thinking I was still dreaming. I saw her on the floor. I thought I could stop it. I couldn't.
Keene watched from the back row. When the jury foreman read, "Not guilty," Dana Dunn collapsed into her husband's arms. Outside, the air smelt like salt and lightning. Houston before another storm. Munoz found her near the steps. You ever get the feeling the truth doesn't stay buried? It just changes shape? Keene half smiled. Truth's like sleepwalking. Sometimes you think you're awake until you see what you've done. He nodded toward the news vans. You did good. Did we? She said, looking at the camera lights blinking like red eyes. Or did we just wake up someone else's nightmare? That night, back in her apartment, Keene poured herself a glass of water. Her phone buzzed on the counter. Unknown. You caught the wrong one. She froze. Another photo followed. A close-up of a hand wearing a different ring. Simpler. Familiar. It was Munoz's. The message below it read, "She wasn't the first." Keene's breath caught. The shadows in her kitchen felt suddenly alive, whispering between the walls. The screen dimmed, reflecting her own face. Tired, hollow-eyed, unsure where dreaming stopped and truth began. If you thought this one was wild, wait for the next. Hit subscribe before the truth disappears.